You are now listening to the Astral Hour. I'm your host, Astral Meadow. Join me as we take a glimpse into the mysterious. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm joined with the wonderful Carmen Turner-Schott. Carmen is based in St. Louis, Missouri, and she wears many hats. She's a best-selling author of 11 astrology books, a practicing clinical social worker, and a seasoned astrologer with over 28 years of experience. She's the founder of Deep Soul Divers Astrology and has worked closely with both trauma survivors and astrology clients around the world. You might recognize her work from titles like Sun Signs, Houses and Healing, Astrology's Magical Nodes of the Moon, Phoenixes, and Angels, and the Mysteries of the 12th Astrological House, Fallen Angels. Carmen has presented workshops through the Association of Research and Enlightenment and is also a faculty member at Kepler College, where she coordinates their counseling and relationship astrology certificate programs. I'm so excited to have her here with us today to dive deep into some powerful themes and the work that she explores. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I've been anticipating this for a while now, and I'm really grateful that you had the space to share your work with us today.
Absolutely. Yes, astrology is my passion, and I just love to talk about it and teach it and open people's minds to how amazing of a tool of self-awareness it is. That's my
Right.
goal.
Yes, yes, I love it. I love it. So, for those who don't know you, could you share just a little bit about yourself and how you ended up becoming an
Sure.
astrologer?
Sure. So, yeah, I definitely was not raised to believe in all of these things. I was raised in the Bible Belt Midwest, near the Ozarks, I say Missouri Ozarks, and I was, raised Baptist, and
Hmm.
it never really. I always believed in angels and believed in things that were different, and I always felt different than my family and friends. And I remember thinking, why am I not like anyone around here? I believed in all these things that I just naturally knew these things and intuition, and I would dream things that would happen. And I just felt different than everyone. And I kind of didn't understand myself. I was my whole life, really. And then until I got 16. So when I was 16, two major things happened to me. And that's how I got into astrology. The first was I had a friend that was accidentally shot and killed. It was a traumatic event. And that changed my life. I'd never known anyone that had passed away. So she had just stayed at my house, and it was just a really shocking thing to happen. That same year, I came back from a basketball game. I played basketball. I was big into that at the time. And I came home, and I always had to have my bed facing the door with the door open and a nightlight on because I was afraid of the dark back then. And I woke up in the night and I saw a glowing ball of light in my doorway, like an orb, and it was water, translucent, yellowy, and I was afraid at the time because it was the unknown. And
Hmm.
but I tried to yell, I tried to scream for my mother, and I couldn't move. I had no voice. I laid there watching it for hours, and the only thing I had control of was my mind. And I kept thinking, please don't have it come in my room. And it never did. It would just it'd go down the hall, come back, float in the doorway, and it was bigger than a softball. It wasn't quite as big as a volleyball, but and it was, I mean, it wasn't anything that looked scary, but I was like, what is it, right? And so after that experience, long story short, I woke my mother up. Finally, she saw it too. I had a witness. I got really obsessed with finding out what that was and why
Hmm.
I was having these strange mystical experiences where I would wake up and I would see someone standing there, or I would have these vivid dreams that would happen. And
Hmm.
apparently I did this when I was little, but I don't remember. But my people that babysat me, like my cousins would tell me, you used to have imaginary friends, you were playing with people, talking to somebody in there when you were little. So I don't remember any of this, right? So I think I was always born very empathic
Hmm.
and open to these energies. And so after that ball of light, I got books about aliens, angels, UFOs, you name it. And I went into this little bookstore in St. Louis called Mystic Valley. And I saw this little book that said astrology. Well, I didn't know what astrology was. I'm like, oh, interesting. So I grab it and I'm looking at my birthday, right? And I'm a Virgo sun. So I'm like, reading it, and then I'm an Aries moon, and I'm like, oh, this is me. Whoa, this is awesome. So I'm like, what is this? So I bought all these books, and back in those days, we didn't have computers, that didn't. So I was doing charts by hand,
Mm-hmm.
learning how to draw my chart, learning how to draw the planets, the aspects, and doing all this, and then memorizing and learning everything. And that's when I realized I'm a 12th and 8th house person.
Mm-hmm.
And I started, it validated why I had these unexplained spiritual experiences. I mean, that was it, dreams, all the stuff. And I'm like, this is so accurate. I've got to figure why this works. So it became my passion. And I was doing charts for fun, for friends. At 19, I started really my full-time, side job doing charts in St. Louis through graduate school. I was getting my master's in social work to be a counselor. And I would practice for fun,
Mm-hmm.
and to get skills, and everyone would tell me you need to charge, or this is so validating, and they would cry, and they would, and I felt like, wow, there's something about this that is like 100 times more powerful than an 8 hours of talk therapy. I
Mm-hmm.
thought I want to bring this into helping people, and in therapy. And I didn't really know how to do it, because this was back in the 90s. And then early, 1999, I graduated from graduate school with my MSW. So it was a long time ago. And um, I always kind of had this as a secret for a long time on the side. And then I had a normal social work job,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like balancing, the clinical world and the rules and regulations and everything with the spiritual. And I've been doing it my whole life. I've been doing astrology and writing and trying to help people and doing research on really the 12th and 8th houses is really where I really got obsessed and started Facebook groups. When Facebook
Mm-hmm.
first came up, I started the 12th house group, the 8th house group, and I wrote my first book based on an article, The Mysteries of the 8th Astrological House, Phoenix Rising. I put it out there on the internet. This is back in like 2003 or something. My daughter wasn't even born yet. I have a 21-year-old now. It's crazy, but I put it out there, and all these people were writing me saying, I feel like what you wrote was me, my life. And then I'm like, wow, we'll share more. And they would share all their stories with me via email, how they felt like what I said is their life. And so I started really researching the 8th house first, really, and really got into it. And I have a lot of 8th house planets. So I started seeing that I'm not alone. All of these
Mm-hmm.
people have a similar life experience, similar patterns, similar, energies. And I wrote my first self-published book in, like, I think it was like 2010, when I published the 8th house book, because no publisher would publish it, because they said it was just about one house. No one's going to buy it, is what I was told. So I self-published it, and it's been out there forever. And I share the emails. I share what people shared with me, just a little bit of them in there. And then I started really getting into the 12th house, because when I was 19 and I knew astrology was so accurate and so powerful of a tool, I went to an astrologer to have my own chart done. And I'd never had anyone else look at my chart. And I went in there, and this guy was also a therapist. Said he was a psychotherapist. And I'm thinking, okay, we're going to do this. And he said, your son is in the 12th house. He said, he kind of had a bad look on his face. And I thought, uh-oh. And he said, anything you put before God will get taken away from you. And I remember feeling really scared. And I thought, number one, looking back, that really wasn't ethical. That really
Right.
wasn't a good thing to say to someone, because it instills fear.
Mm-hmm.
And there was already a lot of fear out there in old astrology books about the 12th and 8th house.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized was that unless you have planets in those houses and have lived and experienced the energy, you really don't understand it. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people out there that talk about these houses, and they write about it, and they're astrologers, and they really aren't comfortable doing charts for people that have planets in these houses. I've had a lot of astrologers tell me that. They're like, they refer people to me as well. They're not comfortable with it, because of there's tends to be a lot of trauma
Mm-hmm.
happens. And I'm a certified trauma therapist, so I've got all of these tools in my toolbox that I can bring out if I need to in an astrology session. So that kind of helps me, because I've had people get triggered, when they're sharing. And And as an astrologer, we're doing deep work. It's deeper than normal therapy, in my opinion. And and so knowing those basic counseling skills, I think is good. And I would say be client centered. So you want to work with where your client's at in any field. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're, a trained therapist or clinical or just a normal psychological astrologer or whatever you're doing, you want to let your client lead you. You don't want to scare people, and unfortunately, there's a lot of fear out there. I used to have hundreds of emails from people who had eighth and 12th house planets say, am I going to die? The astrologer told me that my life I'm going to suffer and all this stuff. And I'm like, what on earth? I'm like, no, it's a gift and a blessing to have 12th and
Mm-hmm.
eighth house planets. I call eighth house people phoenixes because they're resilient and they rise from the ashes and they're strong and they heal other people. They heal
Mm-hmm.
themselves and they heal others. They're drawn to energy. They feel energy. They're very powerful healers. And then 12th house people are angels. I call
Mm-hmm.
them angels. When I say fallen angels, you wouldn't believe how many emails I got about people thinking that I was like forcing Christianity into astrology. And I'm like, no. Fallen angel just means that you fell to earth in this realm and you're like, I'm not from here. That's what
Right.
it means. It's not biblical at all, but people thought I was writing a biblical book or something. I'm like, no, 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 no. It means that you have one foot in the mystical, one foot in the material, and you're like, I know I'm not from earth, which is what 12th house people tell me from a young
Right.
age. They're like, I know I feel different than everyone. I know I'm not from here. Like they tell me they feel like an alien, or they even ask their parents, am I adopted? I mean, they ask them
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, I felt that way. I'm like, am I from you guys? Like, did you find me somewhere? Like, and so I found out I'm not the only one. All of these 12th house people have shared their stories with me. So I have done a lot of research on those two houses, and that's really a big passion of mine. I had I don't know if you saw it, but last fall in NCGR magazine, I published my 12th house research on the 5 patterns that I have researched with people that have 12th house planets. And 99.9 out of 100 said yes to all 5 patterns. So
Mm-hmm.
that tells you that this is a science, it's
Right.
energy, it's destiny, and it's fate. And our chart is what we chose to experience and learn. And we chose to be born when we were. And our parents and our everyone around us has their own charts. They have their own karma, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and they're all learning their own lessons too. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the gist, but that's kind of how I got into astrology, long-winded, but um yeah.
Yeah. I really love that you've kind of hyperfixated on certain houses because I think it's easier to learn when we're focused on certain areas of the chart. And I think some people get overwhelmed
Oh yeah, it's a
at
lot.
times because it's a lot of
Yeah.
information. So I actually really loved the 12th house book.
Thank you.
Because I have 4 planets there and I couldn't, like you were saying, it was so doom and gloom. I thought I was definitely gonna probably die and be tormented and go into an insane asylum.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah,
that's,
like yeah,
not exactly how I experienced it. Like I do have trauma
yeah,
and all of the shadow aspects are there, but I'm
yeah,
so optimistic as a person.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
was like, I don't understand
You're an
how,
angel. Yeah, you're an
right?
angel.
Right.
Yeah.
There's so much beauty in service and I have like clairvoyance and I'm an artist and a writer and and all this and my gifts come from there. So
Yes.
it kind of bothered me that all these astrologers were only seeing these negative aspects to it. And when I got your book, I was so inspired. And I was just thinking as you were talking, I did a reading for a woman and she had also only heard the doom and gloom. And
Yeah.
after the reading, I told her to get your book and she read it. And I saw her out one day and she hugged me and she was like, "Thank you so
Oh,
much for recommending that book," because she had
thanks.
felt so seen by
Wow.
you and your words and her
Awesome.
able to like see other people's experiences. So I think it's actually awesome that you were
Love
able
that.
to really focus in on certain
Yeah.
points. But in your latest book, which we can talk about,
Sure.
it mixes it up a little bit. We talk about, I noticed you had all the signs and all the planets in the signs and transits.
Yes.
And so it's
Yes.
a really great resource for kind of like the whole the whole
Yeah.
chart. So could you
Yeah.
talk a little bit
Sure.
about that book and what
Sure.
inspired you to write it?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you can, it's your astrological energy, mastering, maximize the power of your birth chart. Really, this is what I've always felt like astrology was energy. And that's the way I would explain it to people that didn't believe in it. And like the full moon, it affects us. So my goal was to really learn to harness the energies. And that's when I realized, I don't know if it's just intuition that I had, but when, people would walk into the room, I would sense their energy, their rising sign, their moon, their sun. I would literally guess people's signs. And they're, how did you know? And I would practice it. And I'm like,
Hmm.
it's your energy. It's
Right.
your, it was, well, I was like, what was it? Was it how they talked? Was it how they looked? Is it how they acted? No, it was their energy. I would feel their fire, air, earth, or water. And
Hmm.
I would, and sometimes if someone fooled me, like if I was not sure and didn't instantly feel, I knew they were typically going to be an air rising,
Right.
and I couldn't because I can't feel air sign like Aquarians. I always typically know, oh, they got some Aquarius because I can't connect or feel their energy easily. So I started practicing this. And so the reason I wrote this book, a couple reasons. Number one is most people always ask me, is it a bad thing that I don't have planets in a house? Is it a bad thing I don't have planets in a sign? And I'm like, no, because you have all 12 signs in your chart somewhere. Those energies are there somewhere. We also, at some time in our life, could have transits
Right.
through a certain sign and house. So, guess what? Those are energies that will affect you. So, in a theory, you need to know how to harness and all about the energy of all 12 signs to
Yes.
know. And so I really use that, and that's what this book is about. So anyone, if you want to be more Aries, and you're like, man, I don't understand Aries, or man, I really like Aries, and I want to be like them, you can read the Aries chapter and learn their main strengths, what they
Hmm.
harness, what their challenges are, what their resiliency is. If you want to learn how to be a Scorpio, you read about Scorpio, and
Yes.
that's what I do because my North Node is Scorpio, which is the soul mission, and I have nothing else in Scorpio. And I always thought I felt so uncomfortable with that energy because I'm like, I'm not like that. Like I'm never going to be a Scorpio because I
Hmm.
was too idealistic and I trusted people. I was, too tender-hearted, and cry easily, very I feel more like a Pisces really, even though I think it's because I'm a 12th house sun, but I have a lot
Hmm.
of Virgo. And so I just felt more Virgo Pisces, and I thought I'm never going to be a Scorpio. And I started reading everything I could about Scorpio. And now as I'm getting older, I'm definitely in my node more. And I've learned to be a Scorpio naturally because of
Hmm.
being hurt or having experiences in life that made me have a thicker skin. And so
Right.
I read about it, and that's why I tell people look up your North Node sign in my book because and master it. Learn
Hmm.
about the energy of it because that's where your soul is going this lifetime. And if you want to look at, okay, say you're like, okay, Carmen, I don't have any plants on the fourth house. People always ask astrology, what is that bad? No. Okay, what signs are on your fourth house? You may have one, you may have two. Read both. And you'll see, okay, those are the energies you can harness in
Right.
your home life and with your parents and how you maybe experienced childhood, right?
Hmm.
And so really digging in there and opening up to the fact that this is all energy, and that's why it's so accurate. Because people
Right.
always are like, how did you know? How did you know that? Like very specific thing. And I'm like, it's your chart. It's the map of your soul. I'm just interpreting it in the energy, that I feel. And these are the energies and patterns that are potentially affecting us. But I always like what Edgar Casey said that, that astrology's fact, but there's no greater power over man than his own will. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like your free will, like people ask me, well, if no matter what my chart, this is going to happen in my chart, I have no free will. I'm like, no, 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 you have both. It's
Hmm.
both. It's some things are meant to happen no matter what we do.
Right.
Some things can be prevented or lessened or prepared for when you know the energies and you know astrology. And if it's meant to happen, we're not going to be able to prevent it. But you have free will for some things. Like that's why I like to, I'm sure you're the same way. I like to catch people when they're younger before they get married or go into their Saturn return because you can say, hey, listen, you've got Uranus and Pluto in the seventh house. I would recommend maybe you wait, don't get married until you're a little bit older You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's, get some experience, give tips, not say you're doomed in marriage. That's not what you
Right.
say. Like you're going to
Yep.
have a divorce. No, no, we don't want to say that. But be cautious
Mm-hmm.
with the kind of partners that you attract. Like there's ways to give people that power and that sense of autonomy that they can make their own decisions and like be client centered with it. Like because they'll say like people say, I just keep attracting the same type of people. They're not good for me. Okay, well, let's look at that. What is it, right? And I know you have this happen too, because a lot of people want to know who's my best match.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of person am I supposed to marry? They want to know about their health issues. And that's the thing, it's kind of like in what I believe is that if there's it's just like a therapist. Some therapists are very good at dealing with certain issues. Some therapists aren't as comfortable with other issues. So we have referrals. We have a little, okay, this is a specialist in eating disorders. Okay, I'm not a specialist in that. I'm going to go and refer you to get some counsel with someone that is a specialist because you want someone to get the best treatment they can get, the best healing. And so as an astrologer, it's kind of the same way. Like if people have eighth and 12th house planets, I feel very confident in that I'm meant to help them. I could do
Right.
it because I that's been my passion and my research, and that's all I've done. And but if it's like astrocartography or something, yeah, I can do it, but I don't consider myself an expert. So I would
Right.
rather refer out if it's
Mm-hmm.
really a big deal and they're going to make a life decision based on something. Hey, I'm going to refer you out because I mean I can send you a report and do the basics, but I don't that's not my expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm all about referring to other astrologers as well, and I've had other astrologers, refer to me and say they, have their students buy my books, and then they talked about my books in the class. It was neat. And and being a team, it's kind of like that. Social work's about community and a systems approach. And that's how I see astrology in my view. It's a system of people that all have these different skills. There's a lot of astrologers out
Right.
there, that we can I'd love to, that's why I love doing podcasts and connecting with people like you. So I'm meeting more astrologers because I've been kind of behind the scenes all these years, just doing my thing on the side and working a normal job. And now I'm kind of coming out of the shadows, so to speak. And I'm kind of
Right.
networking more with other astrologers, which I've never gone to conferences. I've never done any of that or presented at astrology conferences or anything. I'm trying to get into that now and dip my toe in there because that just wasn't me. I was more of like a 12th house sun, eighth house moon.
Right.
I'm like hiding behind the scenes doing this stuff on Zoom, writing books. But now I'm out on podcasts a lot more. So, which wasn't easy, but now I'm used to it. But
Yeah, I like that you touched on the fact that there's so many ways we can utilize astrology, and people really do hyper focus on certain things. And not all of us, not all of us want to cover the whole spectrum because
yeah.
when we hyper fixate, we can really become like masters in that one area. But it is so broad. I mean, you've got like medical, like you said, astrocartography, you've got Hellenistic,
Oh,
medieval,
yes.
and
It's a lot. It's a lot. And I don't expect, this is why I love astrology. I'm always learning something new.
yes.
I have not mastered it all. I've been doing it almost 30 years. I just still am learning on my
Hmm.
the asteroids, for instance. I mean, I'm learning all kinds of stuff about that. I never
Right.
looked into that, right? Now I'm like, man, I need to get an asteroid book, right? So, I have, there's a lot that you can learn, and that's why I love it because you're
Mhm.
never bored. You're
Never.
never bored. And I mean, it's always like it's so overwhelming. So I tell people, who want to learn it, don't get overwhelmed. Go to learn the basics first. And
Hmm.
then if you really got a passion for helping people with their health and diet and
Right.
their, the body and the healing, you can specialize in them, get more and take classes in the medical astrology stuff.
Hmm.
You know, and if you're really into, I want to help people find best places to live, then take a class in astrocartography, and really master that.
Hmm.
How to do charts by hand. Nowadays, you don't have to know how to do a chart by hand because of computers. But
Right.
I tell people it's good to learn how to do it so you
Hmm.
understand it and don't be afraid of doing it. Take a class in that. How do you actually do it without a computer?
Right.
Because those things are challenge you. They challenge your skills and stuff. So, but yeah, I'm a psychological astrologer is what I call
Mhm.
myself. And I like to use astrology to help people heal and tap into their resiliency and their strengths and their
Hmm.
soul mission and past lives. That's kind of where my focus is, you know.
Right.
And if people come to me, also relationships, I'm really good, you know, because I was a marital therapist. So I help with that. Bring, you know, normal tools in, love languages, you know, true colors, you know, all these things in with it. Well, you know, let's talk about your love language too, you know. Let's look at the signs. Let's look at your love natures, your Venus, you know. And so, but I just love it. I just, you know, but one thing is hard is that if someone really wants you to tell them what they want to hear,
Yeah.
that can be tough, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I've had people that have been to 20 astrologers
Hmm.
and they're coming to me and they're wanting the same, they think they're going to get a different answer or a different outcome if they keep trying different people. And I'm like, listen, this is not what I use astrology for.
Hmm.
You know, it's, you know, because and I learned my lesson on some of this stuff. You know, you learn by doing things, and they would get upset. Well, you know, I just want you to tell me, and I'm like, I don't know what else to tell you. I've told you everything that I see and what I feel, but it sounds like you don't want to listen to me. You know,
Right.
sometimes
Right.
you gotta be honest with people. And I'll say I think it's best if I refer you to somebody else. I've had to do,
Right.
you know, and I've had, you know, I've had some bad experiences where people got angry that, you know, and then I found out that they were doing this to 20 other astrologers and they
Right.
were abusing people and sending nasty grams and stuff. So it's like ethics comes into play too, because
Hmm.
like it's not ethical for me to tell you that yes, you should divorce. I'm not going to
Right.
tell you you should divorce, or I'm not going to tell you, you know, you should not have children. I had a lady, she's an astrologer now, and I was interviewing her for this thing I'm doing, and she said when she first got her first astrology reading, she was a psychologist as well, trained psychologist. They didn't know that. She got her first psychology reading, and they told her, "You will never have children. You'll never have children. You're going to be barren. You know, you're never going to get pregnant." And
Hmm.
her dream was to have kids. Well, she has 4 kids now. She just had
Right.
another baby. So she shared that with me that if she would have listened to that astrologer and she would have believed she was never going to have kids, you know, she was scared,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and so you shouldn't do deterministic. That's what we
Hmm.
call in the code of ethics, the organizations that do have some ethical codes in astrology. You don't want to be deterministic, which is telling people bad stuff and like you're
Right.
doomed and gloomed and it happened to you, it happened to me, you know, it happens to a lot of people. Uh,
Hmm.
and that's, you know, why I always say, you know, to focus on the energy of astrology and how it can validate your experience, your personality, and your strengths.
Right.
So that's what I use it for. That is what I use it for, to help people
Yes.
understand other people too. And that way you're able to get along.
That is very, very
Yes.
helpful. And, finding people that are different from you is also cool too, because they can help you become familiar
Yeah.
with maybe you have no planets in that particular sign. So it's not like a hyperfixation for you. My best friend is a Taurus.
Yeah.
And for so long, I was like, well, I don't have any planets in Taurus, but it's in my fourth house, right? So it's like at the IC, it's actually really familiar energy. But when I'm around her, I'm like, man, I'm going to act like sometimes I'm going to channel that because sometimes I need to pretend I'm a Taurus because I need to put my hooves in the mud. I need to
Yes.
get the work done. I might need a little
Yes.
charm that day.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
she inspires me and it's because she's not just like she's a Taurus sun,
Sure.
Mercury and
Oh
Taurus
wow.
rising. So
Oh
she's
wow.
like the embodiment. And
Yes.
then you see this in other people and I think it helps you see the ways that you might be able to channel that
Yeah.
appropriately, even though
Abs-
your sun might not be in Taurus, right? But
Absolutely.
that's why your book is so cool because it gets you familiar with maybe the areas of your chart that when you have it read initially, maybe the astrologer didn't go too much into detail on it because you had a stellium over here and that was the focus for that day.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
yeah, I love looking at the areas that maybe I didn't initially think
Yeah.
about because
Yeah.
like you said, we do have this ability to harness
Yes.
any sign. And the more familiar we are, the more we can kind of say, oh, this would be a great moment to pull that Gemini. I'm going on a
Yes.
podcast. Like I gotta be
Yes.
chatty and and so
Absolutely.
I know I have that somewhere,
Yeah,
right?
you do.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
for me, I have Gemini in the fifth house, no planets there.
Yeah.
When people look at me, it's like they see that Gemini because I have 100 different hobbies. I
Yes.
have a podcast. I'm
Yes.
talking. I'm always sharing my art, my poems, but
Yes.
they
Nice.
wouldn't probably guess that I don't have a major
Gemini.
planet there.
Exactly.
But it's a huge part of my life. And so I try to tell people, don't think that you just don't have any
Yeah.
influence because your sun's not there.
Yeah.
You know. It's harder,
Abs
I think, to process that because it's
yeah.
harder to interpret. You have to maybe look for the ruler of that sign to get a little bit more info,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
still, we're complete beings and all these signs, all these houses,
Yeah.
it's all one great story. And it's like you can't just cut out part of the story.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
has relationships even if they don't have a planet there. So it's
Exactly.
confusing for people, to
It is.
understand that. So
Yeah.
I love how your book
Thank you.
helps show the signs and also the transits through those signs. So just because I don't have anything in Taurus doesn't mean I wasn't affected when Uranus went through Taurus recently.
Exactly. Thank
I
you.
felt that
Abs
very,
yes, absolutely. And the houses, when it goes through the different houses, oh my goodness, like
yes.
it's amazing. You know how many people have been coming to me, and I don't know it's really strange, but I keep attracting people that have the nodes in Pisces and Virgo,
Uh-huh.
and people in my life, like my best friend, my husband, have the nodes in Pisces and Virgo, and these people that want to work with me, like we end up clicking, they have the nodes in Pisces and Virgo, and
Right.
I'm Virgo stellium, so it's
Right.
like, I find that energy wise, and I didn't really go into it in this book so much, but in the future, I'm planning on maybe another book and I'm going to maybe focus on this a little bit, but we tend to be drawn to people that have, the energy of our nodes.
Mm-hmm.
So the example I give, I always laugh, is that Scorpios always love me. Scorpio and Tauruses want to be around me. Those are my nodes. South node Taurus, North node Scorpio. And I'm like, at work, I literally was laughing at my last job because everyone in the office was a Taurus and we had one Scorpio and then me. And I'm like, I'm the only Virgo. And I'm like, wow, like what better way to learn my lessons that I'm here to learn, to be, balance these energies.
Right.
And so I married someone that has a North Node Pisces, South Node Virgo, so he's learning from me, my best friend as well. It's just like, she wants to be able to, communicate, talk, her North Node's a Virgo, South Node Pisces, and so I just realized I really you benefit from the sign that your nodes are in. So look up
Right.
your South Node sign, look up the North Node sign in my book, and really try to understand it, because that's you. And you're here to balance those energies because you've already kind of been the South Node energies. You're here to
Mm-hmm.
learn and move towards the North Node, but you never give up what your soul's learned in your past lifetimes, and all those
Right.
talents you bring in. You have them. You just have to, the universe tends to make us kind of let them go a little bit to get into that
Right.
North Node. So the nodes, I would say the nodes are probably, in my opinion, one of the most important things in our birth chart.
Yes.
And I never knew that for so many years. No one talked about the nodes when I first started studying astrology in the 90s. There weren't a lot of books. I think the first book I got was later on in my life. And it's the one that's popular. I can't think of the author, and that's the only one I ever saw. And so I really got into the nodes, seeing with clients and seeing in my own life, like the challenge I had with embracing my Scorpio North Node. And I realized the more I did that, the easier my life got.
Mm-hmm.
And so now when
Yes.
I do charts for people, I always focus on the nodes. Like that's my thing in the past lives and their patterns and the karma and the different lessons and energies they're learning. And so I focus in on that a lot and when I do charts. So I believe it's so important. And I always tell people, if you don't know where your nodes are, that read about that and it'll make some sense it will validate a lot, just there.
Yes.
And if you don't
Yes.
do a whole chart, uh,
Yes. For sure.
the
It's interesting how you were saying like you tend to attract people because
yes.
my north node is in the same house of as my rising. And so it's like
Yeah.
I was already very familiar with the energy, but
Nice.
that Aquarius Leo axis is so highlighted. And
Oh,
so many of my readings are
yes.
also Aquarius north nodes. And I
Yes.
feel like it's because it's my rising that I draw them to me, but it's
Uh,
also my north
it's
node.
your
And
note.
I love it because I'm
Yes.
already familiar and I can encourage them in a really special way because I'm going the same direction.
I love
And
that.
my
Yeah.
children, my daughter is an Aquarius sun and my son is a Leo sun. And so they like constantly pull me back and forth on
Oh
the
my
axis.
gosh.
And
That's how it happens. That's cool. I love
yeah,
that.
yeah, it's such
I
a
love
highlight
that.
for me.
That
But I
is,
come back to it a lot, anytime I feel a little discouraged about what I'm doing
sure.
or I start to kind of
Sure.
doubt, I'm
Yeah,
like, well, this is what I'm here to do. And when
absolutely.
you're into that Aquarius energy, it is so different
Yeah.
and it looks weird sometimes. And I always tell people like if I'm being weird, then I'm doing something right
I know, right?
because I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily here to fit in. And that makes me feel good about
Yeah,
the fact that maybe my stuff isn't immediately resonating because it's futuristic. It's
absolutely. Innovative.
original.
It is. It's innovative.
Mhm,
It's a new, it's futuristic. It's
mhm,
non-traditional. It's something that, we've been in this traditional world, especially with Pluto and Capricorn. So now,
mhm,
Pluto and Aquarius, it's like really going to open up your abilities, you're going to be thriving. I mean, in this
mhm.
Aquarian age, and um it's funny you mention your kids because that's the other research I found, which is so crazy. I mean, it makes sense though, that every parent, when I do parents' charts, at least one of their children has the flip nodes of them, opposite nodes,
Mhm.
or the sun sign in their node, or exactly
Right.
that strong, where they're like a mirror, they're like a
Hmm.
tester. So my daughter and our nodes are flip. So she is South Node Scorpio and North Node Taurus. So we are learning from each other. And that's what I see with parents. And the child that they struggle with is usually the child with the flip nodes of them.
Right.
And when I do the family stuff, because they're the mirror. Like they're learning from each other, and it's not comfortable to get into this. The North Node is not where we feel cozy. We feel
Yes.
cozy in the past node, in the South Node, and
Yes.
that's where we go because that's where we have fun. And so we have to learn to let it go. And I always say we go kicking and screaming, or the universe blindsides us, or we can read about and learn to start becoming like the North Node sign and express that energy into the house that the North Node is in and
Right.
master the house as well and read about that house. And the more you do that, the easier things happen. And when I
Hmm.
started doing that, my life changed because I was living in the South Node Taurus. I didn't
Right.
like change. I didn't want to take risks. Even though I had Aries moon, all of my Aries is in the eighth house, so it was repressed for a long time till Uranus hit through there. It completely rocked my world in 2015.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, okay. So after that transit, my Aries was out. And after that, I started really life events forced me to have to change or to
Hmm.
shake up my life where it was crisis. And I
Hmm.
was living in crisis mode in my normal life. And then my job was also crisis intervention. So I was living in this eighth house sense of crisis all the time and not in the comfortable Taurus, which I remember I was walking one day and I remember I was real emotional. I had some stuff going on in my life. And I thought, why is this happening to me? Once in a while you get like, what the heck is happening? I know my chart, I know astrology. And I was like, but it wasn't my life. It was people that I cared about, things
Hmm.
happening that it impacted me.
Right.
And so I'm walking and I heard this voice, how else will I make you a Scorpio? And I about fell over. I was like, oh my. Then I started laughing. And then I'm like, tears are coming down my face. And I'm like, yeah, how else am I going to be a Scorpio? I gotta have this happen to be a Scorpio. And so I started, I was walking and I was like, this powerful Phoenix energy came over me like, yeah, I'm strong. Like, this is going to make me a Scorpio. How else? And it's like, if you don't have pain, if you
Right.
don't have loss, if you don't have these things, I'm never going to be a Scorpio because Scorpios they have to experience those things. And it's the death, sign of death and rebirth,
Right.
transformation. And how else am I ever going to be a Scorpio? That's what I heard in my head. And then after that, I read everything and I was like, I'm going to be a Scorpio. Okay. And when I would make decisions, I'm like, okay, is this a Taurus decision or is this my Taurus deciding or what would a Scorpio do? So that's what I ask. Ask yourself, if your North Node's Pisces, what would a Pisces do? If your North
Right.
Node's Aquarius, what would an Aquarius do? And ask yourself that and then try to do it. Now, it's
Hmm.
not going to be easy, but I tell you, it'll make your life 100% easier,
Right.
like quick, because then you're going to be doing what your soul came here to do and you're
Right.
fulfilling your mission. And when you do that, the universe starts giving you blessings. You start getting these meaningful coincidences start happening. You start getting meeting people, having opportunities come your way. And then that means you're on the right path, you know?
Right.
And that's what happened to me. That's how I got my first book deal. I
Yeah.
literally, I literally was laying in bed it was 2022 when I had my first Llewellyn book. And I was laying there and I was so stuck in the past. The Taurus, like that muddy, like stuck, heavy, like resisting change kind of vibe. Like I knew, I could feel it. And I laid there and I knew I have how do I get this book? How can I really want this to happen? And I just knew you have to completely let the past die.
Mm-hmm.
I have to let go of everything that's happened in the past, like really let it go. Quit thinking about it, quit feeling bad about it or reminiscing. That's a Taurus thing, connected to the roots, connected to the past, nostalgia, all that. Let it all go and completely release it. And I'm like, I want to do it. I'm gonna let it go. And then the next day I got an email that they're gonna publish my book. And ever since that, I just be a Scorpio. That's what I'm
Right.
doing. So that's
Right.
my little story of my own struggles with
Hmm.
that we're human. And even when you know your chart, know astrology, you still have to live it and you still
Yes.
have to apply things. It's
Hmm.
like I took like 3 or 4 years of lessons in the School of Metaphysics back when I was 18, 19, 20, when I was going to undergrad in St. Louis. Learn about energy work, learn about, the power of the mind, thoughts are things, all this stuff. Chakras, and all these things I learned. If you don't apply them, then you're not going to see the benefit. It's like
Right.
I realize I could go to school and learn thousands of different things, read all these books, learn, learn, learn. My South Node is in the ninth house in Taurus. I can accumulate all this knowledge, but if I don't
Right.
apply it in the real world, I'm never going to see anything change.
Right.
And so now I know I'm meant to write and teach and talk and tell people things on a basic level. And so that's what I try to do with astrology is teach it and write about it in a simple way that anyone can pick up my book and understand what I'm saying. That's
Right.
third house north node. That's what I'm
Yes.
trying to do is be that third house Scorpio north node in the house of Gemini, which is interesting. Because my Mars is in Gemini in the ninth house and my midheaven's Gemini. So I've always had two jobs. Always,
Okay.
always, I get bored easy once I'm know some. I'm a multitask. I'll be working three jobs sometimes. I mean, that's what I do. I like to be busy, and I like to be creative and things like that. So, but um, but yeah, I like to talk. I was on a podcast the other day. So you can cut me off at any time. I was on a podcast the other day, and one of the people put in the chat. She really likes to talk. Because she asked me stuff. She's like, she's just like me. She must have Gemini. And I'm like, Gemini Mars. Yeah.
That's
So,
so fun.
and I'm a Mercury chart ruler. So,
Yes, yes, for sure.
Virgo rising. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
I really liked how when you were sharing about the Scorpio and that whole process of becoming that, when we can look at it as sort of this unfolding of the soul, as sort of this initiation, as this soul-led purpose. You know, I think about this a lot with the Saturn return or Uranus opposite Uranus. There's a couple transits, and people come to me and they're terrified. And I'm like, if we can look at this as a sacred initiation, we
Yes.
can take the fear out and know that this is meant to help you progress on your path. And the challenges in the chart shape us. You know,
Yeah.
they force us to learn, you know, and
Yeah.
it's through the squares and some of those oppositions and some of those challenging energies with Saturn, which everybody hates
Yes.
Saturn. And as the Aquarius rising, you know, Saturn is also my most powerful planet in my chart. Okay.
Yes.
Saturn
Yes.
is like totally dominates me. So I had to figure this out a long time ago. And I
Yeah.
stopped looking at Saturn as the guy that eats his babies because that really messed with me.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I look at him
Absolutely.
as Gandalf now. And I'm going on a journey.
I like
Gandalf,
that.
he could have sent the eagles, but he didn't
I love
because,
that. That is so cool. That's
right,
like
it's
a
the
very
process.
optimistic way to see it, a positive way.
Right, because it was so
Yes.
doom and gloom, similar to the 12th house. And I was like, okay, if this is going to be my chart ruler, then I have to make peace with him. And I
Yes.
started looking at it as like he's a very sacred planet, you know, and I'm going to be tested, but I will also overcome these tests and be more powerful, more aligned.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I'm just seeing people in so much fear. And it's like that's why I love your book. I love
You.
those of us who can see that every energy, every house, there's a light and a shadow.
Absolutely.
And it's like we don't hide from the shadow. We learn from it so that we can see, okay, if I'm embodying the shadow, then
Yeah.
I can play with that polarity. I can bring light into this situation. I might not be able to change it, but I can bring the light in. So I love how your book kind of shows the different attributes of the sign. So you can say, okay, well, instead of being stubborn, you know, as a tourist, maybe I'll be more devoted and I'll really see it differently and not just the negative parts that everybody tells me about it, you know. So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
it's empowering and that is the goal, right? And I feel like that's your goal too. I want my clients to feel empowered. And if they leave feeling like you know, they just got demolished and they've
I
lost all
know.
hope, then what are we doing? You know,
I
because like we can't help anybody if we're just tearing
know.
them down, you know?
No,
So,
we're not helping them. If we do that, it's like in any career field, there's good and bad counselors, there's good and bad, doctors, I mean, there's you just got to find the right person. But, everyone, you may have an experience, and that's why I always tell people, like after living, like a lot of these things I've lived through that I write about, with the 12th and 8th house. And I look back and I'm like, I would not change any of it. I would not change my chart. When you're in these things, when you're suffering, you're struggling, you're depressed, you're really having a hard time overcoming things and healing and letting things go, all this stuff. It's hard. You think, why would I choose this? But then now looking back, I'm like, it's a blessing in my opinion
mhm.
to have planets in the eighth and 12th houses. It is not a bad
Right.
thing. It's actually like I am so thankful I do. Because
Hmm.
because you and I have that 12th house stuff, we are spiritual. We have
Yes.
we have intuitive abilities. We got into astrology. We have all these positive gifts, right? And we want to help people. We have a desire for service.
Hmm.
That is, I would not change that. And so I would never change my chart. I'm happy that I have planets there.
Yes.
And I'm always I love it when I get a client that has planets there, and so I can help, I know how to help them and what to share with them. And people are like, man, I wish I didn't have, that. And I said, but no, it's a blessing because, because I do see 12th and 8th house people and Pisces, Scorpios as well, and Pisces are very, very resilient people. I
Yes.
mean, they really are. And if you talk like when I talk to people that have a lot of eighth house, 12th house, especially eighth house, and a lot of people with a lot of Scorpio,
Hmm.
the things that they have lived through, the experiences in life that they have survived, they are so strong. Like it truly is the power. when you say the word power and resiliency and healing of that energy. You can, they overcome things that most people have never even heard of or would never imagine experiencing.
Hmm.
There's a shadow, the shadow stuff, the trauma, the loss, but they go out and help other people. Like they are drawn to energy healing. They're drawn to astrology.
Right.
And that's the blessing of those houses is that they're drawn to the magical, mystical, mysterious, and
Right.
right? I mean, so I'm glad because if I was just a normal Carmen born in Rolla, Missouri, played basketball and never thought about astrology or any angels or anything weird, I would be bored. Like I am like,
Yes.
I'm glad that I had some weird shit happen to me. Let me just say,
Yes.
so I became, who I am today, and because I can be normal, but
Hmm.
I'm not, I have another side to me. And so, I was just talking to somebody about this, is that I think it's maybe my privacy, the secretive, I've always kind of, I fill people out before I let them really know the real
Hmm.
me. Like I'm me, and I talk about the full moon, I talk about stuff at work, and they laugh, but people didn't know I wrote books for a long time. I didn't even tell my cousins didn't even know I wrote astrology books. And then when they saw me post, they're like, why didn't you tell us? I said, well, I didn't know, I don't know. I just, didn't know if you were open to it. They're like, this is cool. I'm like, oh, cool. They're like, yeah, we went to Sedona, and I realized, oh, they're open. So part of it was my fear of being hurt.
Hmm.
And that's kind of or being judged. That's kind of an eighth house, 12th house thing because of being hurt.
Yeah.
I learned to have boundaries because I
Yes.
never had boundaries. And I thought everyone was like me and would be open-minded. And then I learned real quick that's not how it was. And I got hurt and I felt, bullied, all that stuff. I went through all kinds
Hmm.
of stuff when I was a kid and growing up, and but it made me stronger. And now I'm like, I was in a very um I want to say conservative, but a very political environment, where I just went and did my job. I did my job in a very practical way, like a Virgo. And I was also, doing trauma, working with sexual assault survivors. So I was doing eighth house stuff, but I
Right.
didn't bring any of astrology or any of this stuff into it. I was just being a social worker. And then on the side, I've always had my side full-time astrology stuff. So I've kept it kind of separate. But lately, I think maybe because I'm getting into my North Node, I'm going to be 50 end of this month. I'm on my Chiron's going through my eighth house now.
Yeah.
Hit my moon, my
It's a
Jupiter,
hard
Chiron, man, Aries. Like I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I have to keep my mouth shut. I had because I can't not speak up now because it's
Hmm.
like I'm very much an advocate, and I was very vocal, and I thought I need to change my life and my job because this isn't gonna be good if I stay in this
Hmm.
kind of environment. So I completely changed my life. Everybody was shocked. They literally could not believe I left because I've been around longer than anyone. Like I
Right.
was the one people came to for help. And now they still text me, but I don't work there anymore. But I'm like, hey, yeah, yeah, I'm not there anymore, but thanks for, and they miss me, they want me to come back, but I knew I was done.
Hmm.
And and the thing that about the nodes, I'll tell you, this is what I just learned about my nodes. I was so afraid of change. This was just in January that I was afraid of change, 2025. But I had been miserable for 2 years and I knew I needed to get a new job, but I didn't do it. Yet guess why? Because I'm a Taurus South Node.
Right.
And I
Comfortable.
and I had stability. I made good money. I was secure. I was afraid of lack or losing something. I didn't even know what it was. It was like a psychological, like a very deep thing. And it's from the past lives.
Right.
It's from the past. It's not now. Now has nothing to, I was fine in the now, but there's something about our South Node guys that we are so attached to. And
Hmm.
so I sat there and I thought, I just heard this voice, you're done. You're done. And I was in the kitchen and I thought, oh man, I felt like this hand on my shoulder, like it was like you don't have a choice. Like
Right.
to leave. And so I grieved for about 4 days. I sat here and cried my eyes out before I did anything. And then, talked to my husband, made a plan, everything. And then I sat here and I just knew, what am I afraid of? Like, what is the fear? Like, like I start thinking, like, I can do this other stuff. I've got a degree. Like, what am I afraid of? It was the fear of taking a risk.
Hmm.
And I think that's a Taurus thing. They want to plan. They want to know what's going to happen. They want to know steps ahead, right? And then Scorpio's like, nope, I'm just going to cut it off and I'm changing. And so I know
Right.
I'm meant to be a Scorpio. I'm miserable. I'm going to end this. Or someone hurt me.
Yeah.
Bye. I wasn't used to that. I would hold on to things that weren't fulfilling me
Hmm.
because of the comfort and the stability of it. That's Taurus. But they don't grow when they do that. It's like a Taurus thing. If they hold on and resist to grow, they become stagnant. And
Hmm.
so I took the risk, and I'm glad I did because my life completely changed when I finally allow myself to be uncomfortable and a little bit afraid, like I don't know what the hell's going to happen, but I'm
Hmm.
going in, I'm resigning
Right.
after 25 years. Okay. And I'm not old enough to retire. So I mean, I can't retire. So I'm like, okay, this is all I have known my whole life is this job, pretty much. And now I'm like loving my life and I'm like, wow, I'm a civilian. Like I'm doing, like, I can do what I want. I can make my own schedule.
Yeah.
I'm adapting. I'm still not like sure what the heck is going on and where I'm meant to go, but I know that I'm living my node.
Right.
And I know that since I made the decision, a lot of good things have been coming my way.
Hmm.
So I'm happy I did it, but I just want to encourage people, if you're afraid of making change in your life, try to figure out what is the real fear there. Is it your
Yes.
self node? That's what I believe it was my self node. That's
Yeah,
what is
and facing that, the
oh
Martian
yeah,
energy of Scorpio, but embodying that warrior and saying, no, I'm going to face it. I'm going to charge
yeah,
ahead. And I think as astrologers, it's important for us if we're going to encourage others to follow their north nodes.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we hit this point and we're like, oh no, I've just told all these people and like I'm a little scared to do it today, but I'm going to because I know the soul satisfaction that comes
Yeah,
from following that soul's
yeah,
calling and how
yeah.
dissatisfied I'm going to be. I always, and this might be a 12th house thing, I always think I see myself from this like bird's eye view. And on the soul level, I'm like, will my soul be satisfied after I cross over and look at my life? And that's where I let myself face some of those challenges more because I know I did not come here to just relax on the couch and watch the
I
TV
know, right?
it's like no, there's a little bit more to it than that.
Yes,
So as much as
yes,
it's good to retreat, I always tell people when you're very overwhelmed in life and you got a lot going on,
yes.
retreating to the South Node also brings comfort in times.
It does.
And that's
Yes,
fine. It's not I don't
yes.
try to make myself feel bad about it.
I know,
But
I know.
this lifetime with my North Node in the first house, it's about me. Like I have to pay attention. Like, am I happy? Because I will
Yes,
totally make sure everyone is comfortable except me. And that was where I
absolutely,
came from, right? And so
absolutely.
it's being the individual in the group is everything, right? Am I comfortable here? Like, am I
Yeah,
able to be my authentic self here? And if not, I have to disconnect and I have to do that quite often because I'm like,
I
actually, I don't align here, but it's okay
yes,
because that's my North Node is
yes.
how do you feel? It asks me that all the time. And I'm like, "Ah, I just want to fit in sometimes, you know?
Yes. What are your goals? What are your dreams? What are your
Yeah.
wishes? This is the life for you where you've already catered to other people. You've
Right.
already focused on others all the time and your partner. What does the partner want? What does
Hmm.
everyone else want? How can I please them? And now it's like, wait a minute. What about me? You got
Right.
the relationship karma houses here, right? Your nodes are
Yes.
relationship karma houses. So you're meant to be that Aries energy, which it's cool your Aries sun, because
Yes.
that helps you kind of that with that first house. Speaking up to, I find that when the North Node is in the first house, I find that I'm always telling people you're meant to be an advocate and use your voice. You're
Yes.
meant to speak up for your needs
Hmm.
verbally and share it, you know, and that's big.
Right. And I
And you're
didn't
doing
realize until looking at the chart, it's like, I think I've been uncomfortable this whole time because I've
it.
been
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I
like,
never asked myself how I felt, but now I come back to that very often. I have like little mantras that I kind of think
oh,
about, and I'm like, am I doing the thing? Am I doing? Because it sneaks in on me,
yeah,
and I'll
yeah,
forget, and then I'll be burnt out, and I'll be dissatisfied, and that's how I know. Okay,
yeah,
let's look at the chart. Is something causing me to go more towards the south node right now? Like right
yeah.
now we got Mercury in Leo retrograding. I'm definitely been reflecting on relationships. It's
Oh, yeah.
you know, the trickster
Yes.
energy there's been ridiculous, but
Oh, oh, every time Mercury goes retrograde, I swear my whole life turns upside down. I'm a Virgo rising, Virgo sun, Virgo Venus, Virgo Mercury, and I'm Mars and Gemini. So it's like
yes.
I literally everything that happened last retrograde came back to haunt me this retrograde. Like
Hmm.
clockwork. And I just laugh. I'm like, oh yeah, of course.
Right, you
There's
have to
a
laugh.
text. Oh yeah, oh, we're gonna get I was it's just stupid little things like when I resigned, I had an opportunity to be a part of a contract. And they wanted me to be an advisor on this, it's a crisis intervention thing. Well, they didn't have funding. And so in the midst of this crisis, this was all going on when I left in March. And then, as soon as Mercury went retrograde, this time I get a text. I think we got funding. I'm like, okay, reliving this again. Okay, let's let it play out. Are we really going to get funding? Because yeah, I still don't have a job. So, we'll see. And so it's like all these things played out. And then, what else happened? I completely changed my mind about everything. Like, I don't want to do that. Why was I thinking I want to do that? And then I committed to a bunch of things, which I typically overcommit. I take on too
Hmm.
much. And then I'm like, oh, shoot, I don't want to, I don't have time to do all this. Or I don't, that's my bad thing about being a Virgo. I take on all this stuff and then I'm like, I'm burnt
Yes.
out, overwhelmed. So I'm like,
Uh,
no, I'm picking my things very selectively now.
hmm.
My energy, I want to conserve my energy. And then I started realizing, okay, what's wrong with me? Why am I wanting to cancel all this stuff and not do all this stuff? And like, this isn't like me. And then I realized what it was. Deep down, I want to have freedom and flexibility and make my own schedule. That's what I
Yes.
ended up realizing. I don't want to work for anyone else. I don't
Yeah.
want to. And that's really what this whole thing was about is
Hmm.
me getting the Scorpio North Node, which someone told me, you're meant to be a businesswoman. You're meant to own your own business. And I thought, nah, I'm never going to do that. Well, now I'm like, yeah, I want to be my own boss, right? I want to be my own boss.
Right.
I don't work for anyone else. And so I'm kind of, or if I do, I want to be remote, which I think is
Hmm.
I have to have remote. I thrive in that. And I love to have the autonomy and flexibility to do many different jobs. I'm
Right.
thinking freelance, like I'm even say, okay, I'll be like a contract advisor. I'm a contractor. That's cool. I'll do a lot of things. So I've been applying.
Hmm.
But all I'm doing now is full-time charts. So I love it.
Awesome.
I'm trying to, grow that. And because now it's like, when you put your energy in too many areas, which is what I've been doing a long
Hmm.
time, it's hard to grow what you really love to do. And so I'm like, what? I want to do what brings me joy and what
Yes.
makes me happy because
Yes.
life is short and I could die tomorrow. This is what I've been feeling. This is Scorpio North Node, I guess. Like I could literally die tomorrow. And what have I accomplished? What have I done? Like what the
Right.
heck is wrong with me staying somewhere where my soul is crushed? I'm
Right.
not filled. I don't feel valued. And so I changed everything. And now I'm like, I want to do what I love to do and what brings me joy, and that's writing, teaching, doing astrology. And pretty
Yes.
much helping people in some way. So that's what I'm trying to do and taking a big risk, but I'm living it and I'm like, I don't, I used to always say this, I don't know about you, but when I started learning astrology and all these things, I started thinking, I don't want to come back. Like when I was studying Buddhism and studying reincarnation, like I want to get it perfect and
Yeah.
right so I don't have to come back here. And then I'm like, shoot, I'm gonna be coming back here because I messed up. I'm like, I made a mistake. Shoot, I'm gonna have to relearn it. And so then I'm like, and now I realize we choose to come back here. I
Right.
used to think I have to be perfect and do everything right because I don't want to mess anything up because I don't want to have to come back here on this earth realm, right? And so then I'm like, okay, wait. Oh yeah, I chose to come here. Oh yeah, when we're in soul form, we don't see it the same way. And we were like, yeah, send us back so we can learn more, right? And I'm like, no.
Right.
So I always think I want to be in a position where if I don't have to come back, I don't have to come back here. But,
Hmm.
whatever, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I think we're meant to be here and I think we choose to come back and we don't see it the same way as we do when we're in human body. We're like, why would we come back to the earth realm? I think we
Right.
choose to come back. because we want to learn things. It's like a school, and
Mm-hmm.
and the people that hurt us the most, this is another thing I learned, we have these soul contracts with,
Right.
which I'm learning QHHT, I took class in that Akashic Records. It's like all from the past, and everyone that we know now, we've known before, and all the things have happened. We're learning from these patterns, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and good and bad things, when people help you, there's positive karma and then ancestral. I was going to talk about that too with the 12th house. I always have a lot of people ask me about ancestral karma, like how karma in the generation, how the 12th house person is typically the one that breaks the generational trauma or
Mm-hmm.
karma. And they break the cycle,
Yeah.
and it's either forced upon them or they're the bad guy, or or
Mm-hmm.
projection or whatever it is. But and I've seen that so much in my own life, play out, and how I did break some cycles,
Right.
and then I did a video about it, because so many people share with me, yeah, my grandmother, was an abusive relationship. My mother's an abusive relationship. Then
Mm-hmm.
I was in abusive relationships. Okay, let's look at that, right?
Yes.
Like what is going, there's a pattern here. Okay, what is this pattern? And they're like, I don't want to do that. I want to break that pattern. Typically they got, 12th house planets, eighth
Yes.
house, it's like, and I'm like, see, you did break the pattern, and they're like, oh yeah, I never thought about that, and then we talk
Right.
about that. So, that's what makes eighth and 12th house people strong and resilient too, and healers, because
Right.
they can help heal the family generational karma and things that have been passed down, you know what I mean? Through
Mm-hmm.
generations. And their soul chooses to be the one to do that, is what I've been learning a lot from people. And they're like,
Yes.
it's really cool.
It's helped me feel a little less victimized by the process too, because when I was little, I'm like, why? What? I felt so victimized, and I was a victim in many
Yes.
situations, but it was like as I
Yeah.
got older and I could see that journey and how it helped open me up to certain experiences. And honestly, now I can hold space for others because everybody's going to have things transiting their 12th house. And guess who they're going to need? Somebody that's familiar with the
Yes.
energy. Same thing with the eighth house.
Yes.
It's like those people that are already well versed in that. Everybody's going to face loss and
Yeah.
death and grief. And who's going to hold the space? There's a
Yeah.
need for all of this.
Absolutely.
The earth needs us. And even though
Yes.
they try to sweep the eighth and 12th house
Yeah.
under the rug,
I know, right?
it's not there. It's because I
Yeah.
think sometimes people are uncomfortable with
Yeah.
it. And that's
Yeah.
okay. That's okay. It's good that some of us are familiar with it and we have processed it and
Yeah.
we can see the beauty of it now. At this point, sometimes it's in
Yeah.
retrospect
I know, right?
that you
Right.
get it, but yeah, it's like an honor to me now,
Yeah.
to have that gift
Absolutely.
and it just heightens all my work and it validates it all and
Yeah. Yeah.
I absolutely love it now. I mean, although it's it's still challenging sometimes with the nostalgia vibe of having the moon there is not always fun. But you know, there's
It's
like I said,
cool.
light and dark,
Yeah.
beauty, hardships, and that can
Yeah.
be in every house.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we're not just like free from challenges in the life. And it's like our soul, I think, wants to cultivate itself in
Yeah.
like it's only through the challenges
Yeah.
that we actually explore maybe territories that we wouldn't naturally.
Absolutely. I mean,
So,
it's kind of cool because it's, in the book too, when I was writing about the transits through the houses, I shared some of my own experiences with it, because
hmm
I find that I've been getting a lot of clients, which I think it is not fluke. It's meant to be, that have, Pluto transit in the fourth, Uranus transit
hmm
in the seventh or eighth, which I've lived through. I've already been
right,
through those transits. So
right.
then I'm able to, you're able to understand it. And it's kind of like also when, like with a therapist, I remember when I was trying to get my daughter, she was wanting to go to a counselor. This was years ago when she was in high school. And I thought she was very picky. She didn't like anyone. She'd say they're fake. I don't like them. They're fake. None of them she liked. And I finally found one. I looked at her picture. I was looking at her face, and I thought she's Scorpio. as soon as I saw her face, and I thought that's what my daughter needs because she's a South Node Scorpio. And
Right.
and I was just like, please have her. Like, she comes out, she goes, I like her. So it worked. It was like what she's like 15. I don't know. It was a long time ago. But and that was great. And I was like, thank you. And so I've had people, come to me as when I was a counselor in private practice, and it's like sometimes you click. And the thing is, people know when you're an astrologer, like you don't share all your problems when you're a therapist with someone. Like you don't tell your client I was abused or I had a bad
Right.
relationship. You don't share your own personal. That's like a boundary thing.
Hmm.
But it's kind of like people can sense when you're helping them by your energy. That's why I call this your astrological energy.
Yes.
If you understand them and you
Right.
actually get it.
Right.
Like, because when you've lived something and you have a client tell you as an astrologer about it, they know, they can feel they already kind of know that you get it, like you've been through it too. You don't have to
Right.
say, but it's like, like people say, how can you help me if you've never divorced? You're
Right.
not divorced. You've never been divorced. How can you help me go through a divorce? Or you weren't in a domestic violence situation. How can you understand what I've been through? You weren't in a power control relationship. You know, people that have been through certain things, it makes them a better counselor. It makes them a better
Yes.
social worker, makes them a better astrologer, it makes them a better Reiki master, whatever you're doing, because you can understand people's pain.
Yes.
And you're not just it's not just book knowledge. It's you've been in their shoes, and it's kind of that empathy, you know.
Yes.
And I'll be honest with some people, I'll say, I understand what you're going through. And they're like, no, you'd have no idea what I'm going through. And they want you to disclose, you
Right.
know, you got to be careful as a astrologer. And I don't always, and I don't say, well, yeah, that happened. I said, well, I've worked with a lot of people that have gone through these things. But sometimes, like, they'll say, you've been through this, haven't you? They'll put you on the spot because they can sense that you understand them, you know.
Hmm.
And so, and man, those are the powerful times where they want to come back, and
Right.
they want to keep doing, charts with you, and they want to keep working on things. And it's neat. And but yeah, I love astrology. It is such a powerful tool of self-awareness, and it's like just a tool that I believe, like, we have a lot of different tools we can have in our toolbox, to use to help people. And everyone has a different tool. Some people like using tarot cards, some people like using crystals, some people like doing energy work. Everyone has their tool, but astrology has been my thing because it's like when you look at the wheel, it's just the energy that you see, you connect with someone,
Hmm.
you know, the symbols, the map of the soul is what I call it.
Yes.
And then I always say the quickest way to get a skeptic to believe in these mystical things is to do their birth chart.
Yes.
They'll be like, astrology's bull, this is dumb, reincarnation's not true, whatever. Past lives are false, and then, I said, well, can I do your chart? Just like, can I see it? And then I start telling them stuff. How did you know that? And they're like,
Yes.
oh, that's weird, man. And then they start, and they're like, oh, there might be something to this. Oh my gosh, and then, so I've had people
Yes.
that were skeptics that now are like, Carmen, is it a full moon? Like, at work or whatever.
Yes.
It's Mercury retrograde. And I love that because I'm like, and like one of them, like I mess with them too, like through, I mean, I've been doing this 30 years, so I've worked in a lot of different places. But when people come in, they're kind of coughing a little bit, and I'm like, oh, is your throat hurt? And they're like, yeah, and they're a Taurus. And I'm like, you've been stressed out? I said, it's going right to your throat every time, right? Like, how did you know that? I'm like, well, you're a Taurus. They're
Right.
like, I'm like, she goes, yeah, I always get sore throats when I get stressed. I'm like, yeah, that's your vulnerable area, and they're like, what? Like, you know,
Right. It
and then,
covers so much. It covers
yeah,
so much and can help you in ways that you don't realize, until you start to study it a little bit more and you're like, oh, that corresponds with everything.
yeah,
And learning the correspondences like between, planets and life and all of this. I mean, all of the other metaphysical things I do now because I understand correspondence. I'm like, oh, and it's this plant and it's this
I
it's
know.
this day of the week and like
and
everything is somehow
connected.
interconnected, and I think that that makes life so beautiful because it's like it's always speaking to us whether we're looking at the chart. Once you understand the chart, then you can see Mercury out here and you're like, oh, I can
Yeah.
feel that. I can feel that in my life because there's a resonance with all these archetypes and all of
Yes.
these energies, and it just highlights, all of my spiritual life. It makes everything feel more sacred and more familiar to me. And it really is such a gift. And I love that you have honored your calling to pursue this, to share it with others, to hold space for others, and, to really focus on this work now and doing these readings because you have such a gift.
Thank
And
you.
I'm just so grateful to get to connect with you in this way and share you with our audience because it's helped me a lot personally. So,
Thanks for sharing. I love it. Thanks for having me.
yeah, thanks for coming on. Could you
Yeah,
share a little bit about how people can purchase your book, support
sure.
you?
Sure.
Maybe go or join some of your Facebook groups, and I'll
Yeah.
put it in the comments as well, but just in case.
Sure. I have, all my books are out there. My newest book, Your Astrological Energies, out there. I have Astrology's Magical Nodes of the Moon, which
Hmm.
was came out last year, and I got some other books on eighth and 12th houses. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, they're all out there. You can go to my website, Carmen Turner Schott, SCHOTT.com. And I have all my books are on there with links, and then classes that I teach. I teach classes once in a while, and then I have consults that, I do one-on-one uh, individual relationship, children, whatever you are interested in, Akashic Records. That you can follow me on Facebook, Deep Soul Divers Astrology with Carmen Turner-Schott, Instagram, Carmen Turner-Schott Author, and then my YouTube channel is Carmen Turner-Schott. And that's the big three there. You can get me on my website, sign up for my newsletter, and I send out some things once in a while. And but yeah, I'd love for you to, love to do a consult with you and love for you to grab my books. My Sun Signs Houses and Healing and Moon Signs is a good basic beginner's guide. And then this book is definitely a big beginner's guide. And it's the thickest book I've ever wrote. So thick one. I try to fit a lot in there. I could have put more, but I'm like, I better wait. It's too much. So, but it's a lot of info and it's very easy to understand. Um,
Yes.
yeah, you don't have to be a astrologer to understand. You can actually read my book. You get your basic birth chart. You can look up all your placements. You can start really, get connecting to the energies.
Hmm.
And that's what it's about, is harnessing our energies and our strengths. And we have all 12 signs in our chart that we can harness. And that's kind of what I want you to get from my book.
Yeah, I really appreciated your clarity and how easy it was to understand it, especially after reading a lot of like Hellenistic and ancient
Oh,
astrological
oh,
books where I feel like I'm constantly having to like look up the meaning of all of these words and it's all veiled, and it's like you've already
uh,
done a lot of that work and you have simplified it
yeah,
to be practical and useful and
yes.
helpful, and it really
Yes.
is helpful.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for
Thank you.
writing this book and sharing it and also gifting me a copy. I've loved flipping through it and I'll absolutely be recommending it to my clients
Thank
or
you.
friends that are just kind
Yeah,
of wanting to sample it a little bit because I think
absolutely.
it opens up beginners, especially because they'll finally be able to say, "Oh, well, that
Yeah,
was very easy to
yeah,
process."
yeah,
So,
absolutely. Absolutely. I
yeah.
love it. Thanks for having me. It's so great to connect to another 12th house or two, and
Yes, for
I
sure.
love
Well,
it. I love
thank
it.
you so much for your time. So,
Thank you.
and thank you all for tuning in. Check us out next time on the Astral Hour.